Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. Here is another week's worth of meals for you. So the very first meal we are going to get started with is one of my favorite meals out of this particular cookbook. It is the Prairie Homestead Cookbook by Jill Wigner. I have left it linked for you guys in the video description. This book is really an amazing book for cooking from scratch. She goes into a lot of details about more than just cooking stuff, about preserving things. It's a really good cookbook. So we're gonna make the steak bites with mushroom, and this one is on page 67 of that cookbook. So what I was doing there was just taking a chuck roast. Now she recommends use a sirloin steak for this. You just want to trim off the fat and cut it into 1-inch pieces. Then you want to take about 2 cups of a baby Bella mushroom and just clean and quarter them. I slice them, but you can quarter them if you would like. With that chuck roast that I cut into those pieces, I'm just taking some salt and pepper and just seasoning it in the bowl. You want to take about 2 tablespoons of butter, and you're going to heat that butter in a large skillet, and you want that heat to be blazing hot. Those are her words, not mine. Then you're going to add the steak in small batches just to avoid overcrowding, and you want to sear that steak, turning it as soon as a brown crust is developed. And then once that is done, then you're going to flip it, do it on the other side. She says to do it for about 30 seconds per side, and she really says to keep that cast iron like really hot. If you don't have a cast iron, a really heavy bottom saucepan would work in this as well. So after it is done cooking, she says you want it to remain pink and tender on the inside. You're just pretty much just searing the outside of it. Once all the sides are done, then you are going to remove it from the skillet and set it aside. I took a video of how smoky my house was. The smoke alarms were going off and Stephen thought I was burning something, but it was blazing hot for sure. So what you're gonna do now is add your mushrooms to that same skillet. I didn't have really a lot of liquid left in my skillet, so I just added another tablespoon of butter, and you're just going to cook these mushrooms until they are nice and soft and they start releasing their juice. So while the mushrooms were cooking, I decided I was going to make a little pasta dish on the side. So what I have here is just some basil that I took and froze it in ice cube trays with some oil and some butter, and I just throw them in my freezer, and whenever I want to make like a really easy pasta dish, I just put them in a stock pot and just melt them and put them with pasta. So I have that going in the background. I'm also going to make some of my canned corn as a side as well, so I'm getting that put into a bowl. So what you want to do with your mushrooms, once they have completely released their juices, you are going to come in and add half a cup of beef stock. I actually used chicken broth in this because I had some extra stuff left over in the fridge that I needed to get used up. You're going to add 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. As you've seen there in the earlier clip, I just added with my heart. I love balsamic vinegar. You're gonna add 1 tablespoon of dried parsley to this, and I just came in and added about a teaspoon of salt and just some black pepper to that. My broth is not salted, so I really add extra salt to my stuff. That is what that cube of the oil and basil looks like. So it's all melted now, so I'm just adding some leftover pasta that I had. This was from a meal that I made a couple of nights ago, and I'm just adding probably about 1 to 2 tablespoons of butter, and it looks like about half a cup of Parmesan. I really just eyeball everything when it comes to this Parmesan pasta. I just want it to not be overly like liquidy, and I want the Parmesan just to stick to the pasta. So I just do it until I see that kind of all happening. Once that liquid in the mushrooms reduces by about half, she says approximately 5 minutes, and it's slightly thickened, you are going to pour the steak back into the mushrooms and all of the juices on the plate, and then just kind of heat it through and serve immediately. I think this is my favorite recipe out of this cookbook, but there is a lot of really good recipes in this cookbook, so I highly recommend the cookbook. And like I said, I have it linked for you guys. So one other thing that I am having on the side there, you can kind of see it in the background, is I'm having one of my sparkling waters. If you watched my last Azure haul, you've seen that I was showing that I ordered sparkling water from Azure. This is amazing. It is very good water. So there is the meal. It was a very delicious, quick to make meal. For the next meal, I really had something in mind. I was craving a caprese salad, and I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not. Just, you know, the salad that has the mozzarella, the tomatoes, and the basil. I was craving it. I don't know why. We're in start of winter, but I was just wanting it. So I thought I was gonna make up a little skillet kind of like that. So I'm taking about 1 pound of chicken breast here, and I'm just cutting them into 4 pieces so that they cook a little bit quicker, just so that they're a little thinner. I'm just salt and peppering them on both sides of them, and I'm going to get them in a skillet and just cook them until they are completely cooked through. Now, the other really big blessing that I have right now is before the frost, I pulled a whole bunch of green tomatoes, and so all my tomatoes now are starting to turn, which is amazing. I have never had fresh tomatoes that I grew myself in November, let alone the end of November. So I'm very, very thankful for that. So I'm just getting those cut up into little pieces. Now that my chicken's done, I'm going to remove it from the skillet, and I'm going to add about 1 tablespoon of oil and 1 tablespoon of butter to the skillet. And then I'm just going to add approximately 1 to 2 cloves of garlic. This, again, I don't have a recipe to link for you guys. I was just going by what I really enjoy eating. And we like a lot of garlic. So you can go less with the garlic or more if you want. So I added the tomatoes to the skillet and just cooked them until they started to release their juices. Now what I'm doing is just taking some of my pesto that I made last year. I just make pesto and put it into a Ziploc baggie and freeze it. And then when I want pesto for a meal, I just have to literally do this. So this meal does not look very appetizing. That pesto completely made this look very, very unappetizing, but I can assure you this was delicious. So I'm putting the pesto in, and then I'm adding about half a cup of heavy cream to that, and then some salt and pepper, and just kind of lightly cooking it a little bit more. I'm adding that cooked chicken back into that pesto tomato mixture, and then I'm just topping it with a little bit of mozzarella, buffalo mozzarella, and then I have my oven preheated at 400 degrees, and I just put it in the oven until I noticed that the cheese was starting to melt on top of the chicken. So that is what it looked like coming out, and then I made some angel hair pasta just to kind of go underneath this. This was so good. I don't know what to call this recipe. It was just kind of just my cravings in a skillet cooked, but it was really good. It despite how unappetizing it looked, because as soon as I added that pesto, I was like, oh no, this has gone wrong. But I can assure you it did not go wrong. It is a very, very delicious meal, and I was really excited for it. For the next meal, we are going to make a shepherd's pie. It has been forever since I made a shepherd's pie, and it is one of my favorite meals. To get started, we are going to take 1 pound of ground beef. You can use lamb, you can use pork, you can use chicken, whatever meat you would like to use in this. Shepherd's pie is so versatile. So I had ground beef thawed out, so that is what we're going to use. I am chopping it up with my little food chopper. I have that linked for you guys in the video description if you are interested in it. It is like one of my favorite kitchen utensils. It makes using these packaged meats that I get from the butcher so much easier just to grind it up like that. Once the beef is all cooked through, we are going to come in and add about 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, or you could use a couple of garlic cloves. And it also suggests using 2 onions finely chopped. I don't use the onions in my cooking just because of a texture issue that my husband has with it. So what I'm choosing to actually use is dry minced onion, and I am 100% getting away with having that camouflaged in the meals. He doesn't notice. He also doesn't watch my videos, so I don't have to worry about him finding out my secrets. So what you want to do also is add in some celery. Now again, he doesn't like celery, so I decided to actually use some celery salt in this, and it did lend the flavor of celery that I wanted without having the texture of the celery in here. So this is where shepherd's pie kind of gets to be whatever you want to make it to be. For this particular night, I decided to add about 2 peeled and finely diced carrots, about, I would say maybe 2 cups of frozen corn, and a bag of frozen spinach. Really good other options to add in here would be some peas, green beans, anything that you like vegetables that you like. Add it in. So I added a little bit of smoked paprika to this. I probably added about half a teaspoon. And as you can see here, I am adding Worcestershire sauce, my favorite thing. And like I always say, I just add it to heart. And then I'm going to come in and add about 2 tablespoons of a tomato paste, and just make sure you work everything in. You'll also want to add some salt and pepper to taste. After that is all incorporated and the tomato paste is all thoroughly mixed in, you are going to add 2 tablespoons of an all-purpose flour, or you could use a gluten-free flour if that's what you use, and just mix that in until you can no longer see the white flour parts. Then you're going to come in and add 1 cup of beef broth, and it also suggests adding 1/3 cup of red wine, or you can add more broth if you are avoiding the alcohol or don't want to add it. I chose not to add the red wine, so I just added the extra 1/3 cup of beef broth. And then you want to add some parsley, thyme, and rosemary. It suggests 1 to half a teaspoon of each. I like to go a little heavy on it because I really find that shepherd's pie to me has a very strong rosemary and thyme flavor in it. That's just what I remember from my childhood. So you're going to get that all mixed in. And then what I was doing also in the background is I was making some mashed potatoes because we are going to top this with mashed potatoes. So once that filling is completely cooked through, you are going to add that to a 9 by 13 baking dish, or whatever size baking dish you want to use. If you're doubling the recipe, obviously you're going to use a bigger pan. And then you're going to take your mashed potatoes that you had made previously. This is perfect if you actually have leftover mashed potatoes. This recipe is really, really good for that. So you're going to top everything with the mashed potatoes. I also forgot to mention I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees. So once all of the mashed potatoes are spread over top of that filling, you're going to come in and add some shredded cheddar cheese to this. I would say probably I use maybe 1.5 cups of shredded cheese, maybe 1 cup, and you just want to completely cover the top with it. So you're going to put this in the oven and you are going to cook this for about 20 minutes. What you want is you want that cheese to be nice and bubbly on top of it and completely cooked through. And then there you have your shepherd's pie. This really brought back some childhood memories. We ate this a lot when we were kids and I love this recipe. I have left the recipe linked for you guys below in the video description. I kind of went loosely off of the recipe, but I've left it there for you if you want just a guideline to follow. For the next meal, I was kind of craving a sweet and sour chicken, so I decided to change it up a little bit, and instead of using like a chicken thigh or chicken breast, I decided to make a chicken meatball. So I took about 1 pound of ground chicken and half a cup of my sourdough breadcrumbs, 1 egg, roughly half a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of pepper. I added some ground ginger. I probably added about 1/4 to half a teaspoon of ground ginger, and then about 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. I also decided to add some granulated onion and granulated garlic. You can use actual minced garlic and chopped up fresh onion in this if you would like. I just opted to use the pre-dried stuff. It tends to go a little bit better, in my opinion, in a meatball. So we're gonna get everything all combined here. You can really do whatever flavors you like in the meatball. I was going to originally put some Chinese 5 spice in this also. I thought it would go really well, but I decided not to because I didn't think the flavor profile Steven would appreciate it very much. I had to come in and add a little bit more of my sourdough breadcrumbs because these were a little bit wetter than I wanted. You just kind of have to play it by ear. Just get to the texture where it forms a good meatball, but it's not going to be overly dry. You can shape the meatballs whatever size you personally want to shape them at. I was going for a more larger meatball because I was making a skillet meal out of it. I have my oven preheated at 425 degrees and I'm going to cook these for about 30 to 35 minutes. It really depends on the size of meatball that you are making. I just want to make sure that they are cooked through, so I just cut one open just to check. So they were good. So now what I'm going to do is get my sweet and sour sauce assembled. I have a video showing you guys how I made this amazing sweet and sour sauce, and I can link it for you guys below in the video description. This is so delicious. It goes delicious on pork as well. So I just took a can of my sweet and sour sauce and just emptied it into a skillet. I'm heating it up on a medium-low heat. Now, one way that I find to stretch some of my sauces is I come in and add water. I came in and added approximately half a cup of water to this sauce just to thin it out a little bit. It tends to make the meal stretch a little bit further. That is definitely one of my money-saving tips, is water thins stuff out and stretches it. Then I'm going to take the meatballs, the pre-cooked meatballs, and put them into the sweet and sour sauce, and I'm just going to cook this until everything is cooked through and nice and warm. It really doesn't take very long to get everything assembled. I'm also going to take a can of my canned carrots there and just heat them up in the microwave. I'd also made some white rice earlier in the day, so we just had that with the meatballs. This meal turned out really delicious, and when I make these meals, I'm almost hesitant to show you guys because it's such an easy, quick assemble meal, but it was really delicious, and I really want to show you that you don't need a lot of expensive, complicated recipes and ingredients to make a good hearty meal. This one turned out amazing. For the last meal, we are going to do a sweet treat. I really do enjoy showing you guys how easy it is to make really easy sweet treats. This is one of them. So for Thanksgiving, we actually went to my husband's great aunt's in Arkansas, and I was going through all of her cookbooks, and she had mentioned that her mother, my husband's great grandmother, used to make these cornmeal cookies, and they were her favorite cookies. So she gave me the recipe, and I really was excited to give it a try. So that is what we're gonna make. So to a stand mixer, I am adding 3/4 cup of butter, and it is softened. The recipe does say that you can use just any kind of fat. It does mention margarine or butter, so I opted for the butter. Then we're gonna add 3/4 cup of sugar. I use a white organic cane sugar, and then we're just gonna mix that until it is completely blended through. And then we're gonna add in 1 egg, and then again mix that until that is well incorporated. I did stop a couple of times and just scrape down the sides just to make sure that everything was getting well mixed. When that is all blended, we are going to add our other ingredients. So we're going to add 1.5 cups of flour. I just used an unbleached all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup of cornmeal. Now I would definitely recommend using a fine ground cornmeal. I used mine from Azure Standard, and it wasn't a fine ground one. It had bigger chunks of it in, so definitely opt to use the finely ground stuff. Then you're going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and if you would like, you can add 1/2 cup of raisins to this if that is something that you do like. So this recipe also had a little note at the bottom of it, and it said you can turn these into a chocolate cornmeal cookie simply by adding a 1/4 cup of cocoa and a 1/4 cup of milk to it. So what I chose to do is take the mixture and I just split it in half. So I'm going to bake half of it just plain normal, and then the other half I am going to make the chocolate kind with. So I have my oven preheated at 350 degrees, and we are going to cook these for about 15 minutes. I found they actually took about 20 minutes. I think I need to have my oven recalibrated because it takes a little bit longer to cook things. This is me making the chocolate version. Because I halved it, I just added 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder and 2 tablespoons of milk to that. You're just going to mix it until it is just combined. There's the cookies coming out. They were so delicious, and I can completely understand why this was his aunt's favorite meal. They are really, really good. So that is the last meal for this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope I gave you a little inspiration for the upcoming weeks. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.